I probably do have a penchant for historical themes. Yeah, I am drawn to them.
It's funny, isn't it, how you kind of find something that resonates repeatedly, even if if you don't set out to do that.
Yeah.
Richard, what about you? That whole concept, I mean, as a director.
Well, it's an interesting question, but I think it's there's a division.
Okay.
Some of the arts involve being creative and using yourself to be creative. And so the things that resonate with you are the things that you're going to put out in your art. Other professions, I think, like acting and directing and probably dancing, are primarily involved with interpreting someone's work. So it's about learning about other people and taking what you recognize and putting that in your own work and putting it out there as an actor. It's like finding out where you and the character mesh and where you and the character are completely different. And what's it like to be that different? What will I discover about myself if I allow myself to be that different person? But you know, I'm also a pianist, so I spend a lot of time looking at what other people have created. And like when I play Beethoven, I finally came to the result or the idea that Beethoven is always writing about struggle and success. That if you struggle through something, like in the Fifth Symphony, it's all this struggle with fate. But at the end, there's this great rejoicing. To the extent I believe, this is my own little music theory belief, but
Yes.
you go all the way to the end of the Ninth Symphony with that coda, and there's a little da 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 da. It goes 16 times, da 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 da, bum 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 bum, which I think is a reference all the way back to the Fifth Symphony. With Shakespeare, I think he writes about so many things, but I think for me it always comes back to the question of reality. How do I know what's real? How do I know if I can trust you? How do I know how this happened? And ultimately ends up in the line that is my sort of mantra. It is required you do awake your faith, from Winter's Tale, which means you just have to trust the world, trust your experience, and go out there and live it and take it in. I think Leonard Bernstein wrote about individuality and how we find our salvation in one another. From On the Town, when they sing, "You got me, Gaby, you got me," to the Mass, where the ending of the Mass, the resolution is in everyone going out and sharing the peace individually with one another. So I look at these things as a director in the same way. Like, what is this playwright trying to do? What is this actor, how's this actor going to intersect with the character? And I trust that simply because I'm in the room, it's going to have my imprint on it as well.
Of course.
It's not that I'm going to go out there and set to have and to say, you know, look at me, I'm the director of this production. You can tell it's me because it's my work, because I have a certain theme. I think those kinds of directors don't service the playwright or the actor. And the role of a director is to help the actress or the actor feel as comfortable as they can, because they're in a very vulnerable place out there. They're bearing themselves to an audience. There's a lot of pressure, and they have to feel comfortable, and they have to find that for themselves. So that's my role as a director, is to make them feel good and explore all that and find those connections. And where I can push them one way or another based on my own experience, then that's great.
And stories that you're drawn to as well, though, I would think. Or if not the story, then...
Well, you know, supposedly there are only like 13 plots or something like that, but it's how original they all become. I mean, one of the most surprising things, we were talking about language earlier, that I got out of Warriors Don't Cry in my short history with it, it has to do with the language of the play. We started talking about the language of the play. And Melba comes from a family that's quite educated. Her mother was educated, had
Yes.
a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. And when I first read Warriors Don't Cry, it was like looking at it and going, well, they don't sound black. How come they aren't sounding black? And a black actress, a very good black actress named Nora Cole, informed me that in that time period, the African American community took very good care of their language. They wanted to be seen as being educated and speaking English correctly. That they didn't want to appear ignorant or foolish, and that this was a way of presenting themselves to the world with honor. And you even have a line in the book where that Dr. Beals writes, where she asked by a fellow student, how come you speak with a northern accent, in Little Rock? And the response from her mother is, we speak the King's English.
Mm-hmm.
So language was very important. It was a very important way for them to communicate. This is the benefit for me. It's like, wow, that's really interesting. And then it's a kind of dangerous subject, but then there's looking at the way the community speaks now. And is it
Not
as
everybody.
intelligent? Yeah.
Not everybody.
Not
Not
everybody.
everybody.
But is it as intelligent?
No.
And I mean, I think rap music is a great thing because there's a lot of creation of language in rap music. It's a vital, living language. Some of it is offensive. Some of it is really interesting and amazing. And you get that. But it's here's how language has developed for that community. And this word that carries an immense amount of history with it, of pain, and now is frequently on the subway in New York.
Yeah.
And it seems to be the only word that anyone knows how to say, and you're like, are you going to say anything articulate?
It's deplorable.
It's an interesting observation.
Yes, an observation and a commentary. Not making a judgment yet, but or at least an initial judgment might be very negative on how things are there. But this exploration of Warriors Don't Cry, this civil rights memoir by Dr. Melba Patilla Beals, I think is going to invite discussion among the community, certainly with teachers and their students, but also among the community in general, and that's one of the reasons we chose the book. So I realize that we're just about out of time, and I want to be sure to let the audience know that you'll be able to see Warriors Don't Cry, the stage production starring Elmeria Campbell, directed by Richard C. Avon, at the Bushnell, October 4th, the night of October 4th on our Literature to Life series. Dr. Beals herself will be at the Bushnell on the evening of October 7th, and we have student performances of Warriors Don't Cry on October 4, 5, 6, and 7 at 10 in the morning. You can get all the information at the Bushnell. So thank you very much, both of you, for making the trip from New York to share this information. And as I mentioned, I'll have Scott on later, and we'll talk about the actual adaptation process. And in closing, let me just say a thank you to my crew and also to you in the audience. And I'll close with the words of Ursula Le Guin, who said, "There have been civilizations that did not use the wheel, but there have been no civilizations that did not tell stories. So find your story and find a way to tell it. And join us again next time. Thank you."
Food for the crew and guests was provided by Manchester Grill of Manchester, Connecticut, and Angelo's Restaurant of Glastonbury, Connecticut. Be sure to send your writing questions and your comments on the book club selection to Zita at page 1, P.O. Box 1515, Manchester, Connecticut, 06045-1515, or send an email to Zita at page1tv.com.